Do you ever stop to wonder what would have happened had there have been no World War II? I mean, seriously, it's one of those things that, I honestly ask myself that what if question, maybe because I watch a lot of Star Trek. So, you're always curious about that what if someone went back in time and stopped this or stopped that. And I do wonder what would have happened had there been no World War II. I mean, aside from like the big things, the massive loss of life in both the war itself and the Holocaust and things of that nature, but I wonder what the pop culture of the world would have looked like, especially for us. So much of our culture and our pop culture is tied up with war films and things that spawned out of them. You wonder, would the career of John Wayne have been as big had it not been for World War II? Turner Classic Movies, runs these things all the time. You think about all the people who had jobs and, made livings out of, Tad Hunter played a soldier so many times, So it's just one of those things you wondered is, it's just one of those things that, monumentally, that point in history, not just, again, the tragic loss of life, politically, but you just wonder, that domino effect, that trickle-down effect of what the world and culture would have looked like had that war not taken place. And the only thing I can really come up with to kind of wrap it all together is that if it hadn't taken place, I wouldn't have had to watch this piece of shit movie. Welcome back to Independent Educational Research. Our topic today, U.S. history. Learning objectives: by the end of the lessons, students shall be able to tell what's bullshit about this. All right, one last thing before we really get going with the review here. I think there needs to be a quick little disclaimer at the front. I am not a historian, and I'm not a World War II or military historian. That you want that, you need to talk to my dad, or my mother, who is a history major. They would be able to piece apart historical inaccuracies or anything like that. I know, like most people, kind of the basic stories, the basic timeline, but of the actual events, of the people involved, I know next to nothing. All right, I recognize a few names and a few places, but I don't know who these people were. I don't know the events that took place in detail. I'm saying this because when critiquing a historical film or a film based on historical events and real people, you got to be very careful, because you could say, well, this was completely wrong, and oh my God, that was completely stupid, and it turns out that's exactly what happened. If you're not well versed in the subject, you run the risk of sounding like an ignorant ass. And I'm probably going to sound like an ignorant ass, more so than I usually do during one of these. Pardon me. Oh, God, sorry about that. So I want to make that clear. I also want to make it clear that when I speak of the people in the film, what I am referring to is this particular performance. I am not in any way meaning to disrespect the accomplishments or the sacrifice of the men and women involved or portrayed in this film in any way. American and Japanese heroes all. Okay? I want to make that very clear right at the start. All right? All right. Let's talk about this piece of shit movie now that we've covered all the niceties. Again, I'm not a World War II or a military historian, but what I am is a film fan. I love the movies, as the fact that I've set up this whole thing of reviewing films in my free time can prove. And I love old movies. So while I may not have been a military or World War II historian, one thing I am fairly well versed in are war movies. I've seen a lot of war movies. And especially the ones made around the time that, the war was actually taking place, either during the war itself or in the years just following. And you understand that most of those films were made to be, quote unquote propaganda. They were there to lift the nation's spirits, give us a hearty, here we go, we can do this, get back to it, Johnny, get your guns and Rosie the Riveters, and that kind of thing. And so you understand that when you watch a war movie, you got to take it with a little bit of that grain of salt with that propaganda that goes with it. The reason I bring this up is because the movies I've seen, the Turner Classic films I've seen on the war, feel less like propaganda than this fucking thing. Oh my God. This movie is one of the just flattest, most lifeless, most boring, most irritating things I have seen in some time. It's wrong from just the top to the bottom. Where to start with this? Well, let's start with the characters. And again, I am speaking only of the characters as represented. Only the characters as represented. These are some of the most flat. Calling them two-dimensional characters is an insult to all the hand-drawn Disney animation that has gone before. These characters are so thinly sketched, are so less than one fucking dimensional. It is uncanny. They speak almost entirely in cliches and pep talks. And without any of the earnestness or honesty of, an actual World War II movie. The lead actor, Ed Slurkin, I believe his name is, or Slurkin, who's playing, the guy's last name was Best, a pilot. This has got to go down as one of the worst performances I have seen all year. It is acting that is bad on a level I cannot quite fathom. It is bad acting taken to a degree hitherto unknown. I know, Barnabas. The acting was so bad it made Barnabas fall over. Don't leave us now, Barnabas. It'll be okay. It's only a movie. First of all, this is something weird to pick up on. First of all, this guy needs to eat something. This Ed Sorkin guy needs to eat something. Because he looks emaciated throughout the entire fucking movie. Like he constantly looks like he just escaped from a prisoner of war camp. So that's one. Sorry. Two, the accent he is putting on is I want another adjective. I don't have another adjective for how bad his accent is. I couldn't even tell what the fuck kind of accent it was. When he first started talking, I thought he was doing a southern accent. And then he's doing this big speech at the funeral of some guy we met for 5 seconds, so we don't know who the fuck he is. And it's in this weird Brooklyn-y, New York kind of thing. And it keeps jiving and mixing these accents throughout the entire film. I have no idea where the fuck this guy's from. And again, I don't know what this man was like in real life. Maybe he truly was like this. But the character, and I use the term as loosely as a 4X shirt, he is clearly supposed to be our Hawkeye Pierce of the piece. I.e., he's the perfect man. He knows everything. He's always smarter than his commanding officers and all the other folks. But he feels so much for his men. But he always knows. He's there to give our historical context to everything. Oh, why didn't they turn that ship that way? Why didn't they do that? Why should they do this? Am I switching up accents bad enough? No worse than he did. Fucking awful. If that was how the guy was portrayed, if that's how he was in real life, kudos to you. But for a movie hero, and they give him no arc. They give none of the characters an arc. Again, these are not characters. These are caricatures. None of these people have even the vaguest resemblance to an actual person with emotion and feelings. So, therefore, it is impossible for you to connect with any of them. I'm watching these life or death air battles, and I couldn't give two shits if anybody came out of it, because I didn't know who any of these fucking people were. That's the other thing. So, because it's a historical piece and they're using, real events, you're introduced to hundreds of people all at once, a lot of whom look and sound almost exactly alike, with a few minor alterations here and there. So, early goings on this film, it is virtually impossible to tell who the fuck is who's going where, what is happening. Scenes in this movie go boom, 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 boom. We're here for 2 seconds, we're there for 2 seconds, we're here for 2 seconds, there for 2 seconds, there for 2 seconds, there for 2 seconds, there for 2 seconds. It's like a Shakespeare play, but nowhere near as dramatic or with the well-crafted characters. What I mean by that is, if you read a Shakespeare history, he condenses weeks, months, years into, a short time span. That's what this film's doing. We're over here, we're over here, we're over here, we're over here. There's a battle, 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 there's a battle. You can't keep track of it. And again, for someone who has no knowledge or very little knowledge of the people, of the history, doing that just got me lost. We're introduced to these characters, like I say, they're at a funeral for a guy who was killed in the Battle of Pearl Harbor, who we see for 2 seconds. He's on screen, he's yelling at some guy to set up the chairs for church. Then the attack happens. He and the other guy are running. He throws a line across to the other ship, makes the other guy get across it. The ship blows up, he dies. They never introduced this motherfucker. Who was he? Who was he to these guys? I think if I had to list the best war films, probably number one for me would be Tora, Tora, Tora. It's long and it's a bit boring, but it is historically brilliant and just amazing. And one of the things it does, and a lot of historical films do this, is when the person comes on screen, they introduce them. They put a little text up there. So-and-so, Admiral Halsey, captain of the USS Enterprise. They let you know who these people are. They don't do that here. So you have no clue. And again, because they're jumping, gotta get to the next scene, the movie's got ADD. You have no time for them to build relationships, to know who the fuck they are, what they want, where they're going. It's, oh my God. And again, that's every motherfucking character. Every single one. And I don't mean to, and I'm picking on the one guy, but he was the worst, but everybody in this movie was bad. I don't know if he was just putting it on for the movie or if that's real, but Dennis Quaid sounded like he gargled with razor blades before going on. Sounds like Satan. They've got Harvey Dent from The Dark Knight in this as Doolittle, the guy who led the bombing raid on Tokyo. He's in it for about 10 seconds, to the extent that you're like, why is he in this movie? We could have done this whole movie without him. We didn't need that. And again, I think this movie can't tell if it's trying to be a rip-roaring action adventure or if it's trying to be historical. It's trying to have it both ways, and it's not satisfying either partner. And it's not just the men who are terrible. Again, I don't know Commander Best's wife. I know nothing about her, as portrayed by Mandy Moore in this film. So it's possible that she did this. But I have a hard time believing, because my father was in the Air Force, my mother was an officer's wife, and I have a hard time believing that you would bring your wife to a shindig, and she would sit down across from your commanding officer and go, "Why hasn't my husband been promoted yet? why isn't he command of things? It's like, I really don't think any officer's wife would do that. Maybe she did. If she did, then good for you for standing by your man. But again, as my mother always said, the Air Force used to tell people, if the Air Force wanted you to have a wife, they would have issued you one. You know, so I think that's another problem with the acting and the writing of the characters, is these do not feel like characters or people from the 1940s. They feel like modern actors, modern people plopped down. The whole thing just feels very anachronistic. Like, very. And I don't know if it's just because some of these aren't the best actors in the world, or it's, I mean, the script is not good, so they're given nothing to work with. So I really believe you could add Patrick Stewart in this movie, and he wouldn't have given a good performance. But then again, that's Patrick Stewart. He could do anything. And let's talk about the special effects. These are some of the most god-awful special effects. Oh, Lord. The attack on Pearl Harbor at the beginning is so flat and lifeless. It stirs no emotions in you because the explosions are about 40 times bigger than the explosions would have been. How do I know this? Again, I watched Tora, Tora, Tora. Tora, Tora, Tora has one of the most carefully crafted battle scenes in it when they reenact the bombing of Pearl Harbor. It's often said that the movie attack on Pearl Harbor actually cost more than the actual attack on Pearl Harbor. Sorry for the glare coming in there. Can't quite get rid of it. So you go watch that battle and look, and I'm not trying to compare. Obviously, it's better to use CGI for these things. You're not endangering human life. It's cheaper. So I get that. But go watch the explosions in Tora, Tora, Tora. And look at how they looked compared to the fucking atomic blasts that go off in this. I've always said that's a problem with bad CGI, aside from it's bad, is that it seems like things have no weight and no mass to them. You know, explosions toss cars around like Tinker Toys, and that's not how things would fly. You know, that's the problem when you go that safety route, and it loses the actual weight of a practical effect. Now, again, I'm not saying they should go blow up everything. Boy, that really is some bad glare there. I'm really sorry, but Jesus Christ, sorry. The special effects in this are so bad. So bad. They look as bad as shit from the Star Wars prequels almost 20 years ago. That's how bad these special effects look. The green screening is just, it's so fake. It is embarrassing how fake it is. I'm trying to think of anything that is a saving grace of this movie, and I can think of nothing. I literally can think of nothing. And I think one of the problems here is they got the wrong person to direct this. I don't know if he wanted to direct it. I don't know if it was a passion project, but it just is not a good thing. I will defend my love of Independence Day to the grave. I love Independence Day. I think it is a fantastic movie. It's fun, it's silly, it has weight, you like the characters, you know the characters, you feel for the characters. As big and broadly drawn as they are. But Roman Emmerich has, at least not that I have seen, has never been able to recreate that. And especially a movie like this where he's trying to go for realism and invoke real emotion using real people. It is just, it's like a pig in a prom dress. The two things just don't fit. You know what's really funny like a bunny? That's becoming a new thing for me. You know what's really funny like a bunny? Is I never thought that there would be a film that would make me yearn for the coherent story and well-crafted characters of Michael Bay's Pearl Harbor. But it's happened. As crap as that movie was, I would much rather have watched that than this. That is how bad this movie is. And again, I don't know the history of everything, but they sure made it seem like nobody but Mr. Best could hit anything. They're in these wars, they're shooting these torpedoes, they're missing the Japanese by a mile. Every torpedo is missing. Every dive bomber is bombing and missing. So I don't know if that really happened. That may be the way it really happened. So I don't want to show too much of my ignorance. But from a thematic standpoint, and the way they already propped this guy up as our Maverick Hawkeye Pierce for the piece, it just made it look like, well, that guy won the war for us. Thank you. I truly am trying to think of something I liked about this movie. And I can think of... Oh, okay. They tried to do the Tora thing. For those who haven't seen Tora, it is a almost documentary style film detailing the attack on Pearl Harbor from both the American and the Japanese perspective. And this film is trying to do that. It's trying to show the Americans and the Japanese. There's a lot of shots of the Japanese doing a thing and then the Americans doing a thing. Oh my, isn't that poignant? And even though I don't speak Japanese and had to go up the subtitles, the Japanese acting in this was way better. Maybe because they weren't shooting for the moon. There's a scene there towards the end. Again, sun just went nova outside. Sorry about that. Where to keep the ship that's been damaged kind of uncontrollably or unsalvageably, to keep it out of enemy hands, the Japanese captain says, I'm going to go down with the ship. We're going to blow it up, and I'm going to go down the ship. And his first officer says, well, I'm going to go down with you. He says, thank you. And this young guy who he yelled at one point in the movie says, sir, I want to go down with you. He says, no, you're a young man. Your life is still ahead of you. You still have battle to fight. This is our last order. That scene was surprisingly touching. And again, I had no clue who any of these people were. They were never introduced. Or they were, and you couldn't tell one character from another. But it was a surprisingly really well done scene. So, there you go. There's a plus side. It was all worth it for that one fucking scene. Let's wrap this up, because I'm almost home. Like I said, that is the downside of doing these in the daytime, is the sun coming at you. You can't control that. Final grade for this one. I was trying to be nice, but I can think of no redeeming qualities. This is an F, folks. It's an F. And you hate saying that because you don't want to be disrespectful to the true people and all that, but that doesn't make it a good movie. Fortunately, if you want good war movies to watch on Veterans Day, I think there are a few. So, go watch The Memphis Belle. That's a great war movie. That's a good war movie. So watch The Memphis Belle. Or go watch the original Midway. Charlton Heston. Don't watch this shit. So that's it. So I hope you've enjoyed our independent educational research history class. We'll be back with more. So until next time, drive safe, and I will see you at the movies.